like ours are facing in right now. So thank you again.
Thanks so much, Jen, and hopefully that's the team, and we hope to hear from the rest of the group as we head through this presentation. So just to give a brief overview of today's presentation in terms of an agenda, we'll just go over, we've already done the welcome piece, we'll go over a couple of housekeeping items. We want this to be actually pretty interactive, so we have something pretty cool to get some input from this group, so we'll introduce that. We'll go over the project timeline for the project Growing Together. We'll overview some of the upcoming engagement events that we have planned and our true commitment to engaging you through this process going forward. Then we have a couple of activities to work through and get some input on, and then we'll outline some next steps for everyone here to get involved and when you'll hear from us again. So the purpose of today's session, as you know, is having to do with housing, but also about the official plan as well. So we want to provide an overview of the project and process that we'll be following. This is, again, as our first touch point with the community, and we want to outline that for everyone. We also want to develop a shared vision and guiding principles for Strathroy-Caradoc. These will help our team develop policies, develop recommendations that reflect the community's desires for the future. We also want to inform the community about the next steps and how you can stay involved in the process. It's obviously fantastic that you've registered for today's session and you've likely seen our website. So we'll definitely show you some of the exciting things happening over there. So just to give a few housekeeping items, if you aren't speaking, we do ask that you stay on mute just to keep the sound quality good. If you're experiencing any connection issues, as they do happen from time to time, we recommend turning off your camera. So that's something you can try if you're having a little bit of trouble there. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A, and so we'll facilitate that and direct your questions to the most appropriate person. Feel free to raise your hand at any time, and I'll do my best to answer it in the order that they come in. Alternatively, you can type a question in the chat box, and we'll get to those questions as well. If you've joined us on the phone, we'll also give you an opportunity to unmute on the phone since you can't raise your hand on the landline. So we'll be sure to give everyone a chance to ask your question or share a comment once we get through the activities. So as I said, today's session is really intended to be interactive. So we're using a secure external live polling tool called Mentimeter. And in a couple slides, we're going to get to a couple questions that we'll ask for your input on. So right now, while we get there, feel free to scan the code with the camera on your phone or visit www.menti.com, and you'll be prompted to enter this 7-digit code. It's very straightforward. You can do it on your computer or your smartphone, and it'll allow us to get real-time feedback, and you can see how the other participants on this call are engaging with the questions. We'll have this slide up again once we get to the activities, but we just wanted to get everyone ready for what that'll come. So we will test that out as our next slide. So I'm going to flip screens here and go to the first activity. Great, we're seeing lots of questions come in. Let me share my screen, and you'll see. All right, so the first question today was, how did you learn about today's workshop? So lots of people here voting that you heard about it from word of mouth, a number of people seeing it on the website, and a couple people from different flyers and newsletters that were circulated. We'll give everyone a couple of seconds maybe just to figure out how to use this so we can ask some questions a little bit later. If you're having any trouble with the platform, feel free to type in the chat box, and when I'm not speaking, I'll try my best to respond to you. Okay, so we'll move back over to the actual presentation now. So thanks to everyone, pardon me, who submitted, and you can continue to submit answers once I close this screen. Bear with me. Okay, just having a bit of, I want to make sure I get the right slide up here. Okay, apologies here. Okay, so I'm now going to pass the microphone over to Alejandro Cifuentes, and he's going to give an overview of the Growing Together Strathroy-Caradoc project.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody again for taking the time out of your busy days and for connecting tonight. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Alejandro Cifuentes. I am a senior planner with WSP, and I happen to be the project lead for the Growing Together Strathroy-Caradoc plan. I am very eager, very excited to be working with this great community. And I think that what we're doing tonight and we're going to be doing for the next 24 months or so will have a great impact, a positive impact on the community and the municipality for years and years to come. I think, that having so many people connected tonight, taking the time to call in and to be engaged, speaks volumes to the kind of community that Strathroy-Caradoc is, and reinforces something that Jen and Fred Tranquilli, the CEO, have been telling us for a few months now, that, this is a very engaged, very interested, and very informed community. So we're hoping to capitalize on that and to make this project a success and to keep you engaged as we go along the way. So, excuse me, I'll start this portion of the presentation by providing, again, a very general overview of the official plan review project. I will try my best not to take too long because we have a very engaging and very interesting session, workshop session planned for you guys tonight. So I will be speaking briefly on the overall process for the official plan review project. Next slide, Matt, please. Thank you. So why are we doing, or what is the impetus for updating the official plan, and why is the municipality doing this right now? I think it's a bit twofold. I think first of all, the official plan was adopted back in 2006, and it's a very older plan. It's 14 years old or so. So the municipality has obviously changed since then, and those changes, that vision, that that needs to be reflected in municipal policy documents such as official plan. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this right now. In Ontario, also, municipalities are required to update their official plan and under the Planning Act, and these official plans or these documents need to conform with updated provincial policy, as well as the County of Middlesex official plan. Also, in recent years, the municipality has modernized or has updated some of their local land use planning, some of their land use planning legislation, I'm sorry, including the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement. So this official plan review represents an opportunity for the municipality to establish and enact policies to manage the expected growth and expected development over the next 25 years. This official plan, the official plan and the policies contained within the official plan obviously will be informed by these type of sessions by the public in consultation with council, with the county, with the various agencies, and with the public, and they will be also informed by the master studies, the master plans and the studies such as the Attainable Housing Study. So it will be a very coordinated and a very comprehensive plan that will inform that overall official plan review process. Thanks. Next, okay. Thank you. The project, which already Matt referred to as the Growing Together Strathroy-Caradoc plan, will help guide the future of a municipality over the next 2 decades or so. This project goes beyond the typical official plan review process, as it also includes the update and in some instances, the development and the preparation of new master plans and studies. So these master plans and these studies will certainly help guide infrastructure and budget decisions for the municipality for years to come. And they will also inform the technical work and the policy requirements required for the official plan to be updated. Ultimately, this process will maintain and in some instances enhance the overall quality of life for the entire community, which is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing tonight. Thanks, Matt. Yep. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. As mentioned earlier, the Growing Together goes beyond the typical official plan review process. It also includes various inputs and key drivers, such as the 8 master plans and studies that we're preparing under this umbrella. For everyone's understanding and for everybody's, to establish a baseline, I think it's beneficial to go briefly over what these master plans are and what these studies will be covering. As I mentioned, these studies are important because they will be guiding infrastructure and budget decisions for years and years to come, and they will be a critical component and a critical input for the official plan review process. So first we have the Recreational Trails Master Plan, which is being led by WSP, and this basically will help identify trails and road improvements within the community, and will help to inform and guide the long-term implementation of a trails network across the entire municipality. We also have, as part of this list of plans, we have the Parks and Recreational Master Plan, which is being led by Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. And this plan will help to outline the needs and opportunities related to parks and recreation, such as parkland, such as community facilities, operations, and programming for these spaces. Third, we have the fire station location study, which will review existing fire services within the municipality to help identify the best locations for future fire stations and other service enhancements based on the expected growth within the municipality. Next, we have Employment Land Study, which is being led by Watson and Associates. And this will help to provide an assessment of employment land requirements for the municipality over the next 25 years in order to support local economic development and local economic growth, which is another priority for the municipality. Next, we have the Regional Commercial System Study. This is also being led by Watson and Associates, and this will conduct a review of the location of existing designated commercial areas in order to assess whether or not there is enough land to meet the current and anticipated market needs and to respond to trends in the economy like online shopping, as well as to address the various impacts associated that we're seeing with the COVID-19, for example, and how that's impacting our trends and our shopping and our commercial trends as residents of not only of the municipality but also of the province and the country. Next, we have the Transportation Master Plan, which is being led by WSP. And this master plan will help provide recommendations and strategies to improve the transportation system within the municipality. And it will help to address the needs for how people and goods move within the municipality, through the municipality, and around the municipality. Next, we have a servicing capacity and constraint study, which is also being led by WSP. And this study will help to evaluate the capacity for drinking water, wastewater, storm management, and stormwater management systems, to respond to current and future needs of the municipality and to help plan for that growth over the next 25 years. And last but not least, and the reason why we're here tonight is to talk about the Attainable Housing Study, which is being led by our colleagues at SHS. And this will help to outline an action plan for addressing gaps between the demand for and supply of attainable housing, as well as for housing affordability in the municipality, which is, as Jen already mentioned, a key factor, not only from an economic development perspective, but also from a humanitarian and social aspect perspective in the municipality and also in the province for that matter. Next slide, please. So how do we plan to tackle all these various pieces, and how does everything sort of fit together? As I already mentioned, we are at the early stages of this process. We started 3 months ago, and we're kicking off this process unofficially this week with a meeting, obviously, with the community. This is the first public session, so we're very excited, and we're hoping to have a very successful meeting tonight to help get that process sort of like kickstarted and in a positive manner. We will be going to council in a few weeks from now, on March 15th, to officially kick off the official plan review process by having what we call a special council meeting under Section 26 of the Planning Act. So that will be the official launch of the official plan review process. But tonight, let's call it the unofficial launch for this entire undertaking. The slide on the screen helps to provide a visual representation of the various lengths associated with each of the project's components. And as per the slide, master plans and studies are expected to be completed somewhat in phases, two phases really, with the first sort of phase of studies being prepared over the next few months or around the springtime, while some of the master plans and some of them other studies being completed later in the year around the fall of 2021. Once we move on into 2022, the focus will be on the municipal comprehensive review process, as well as actually updating the official plan itself. We are hoping to have a final and approved and enforced new official plan by the end of 2022. So it will be roughly a 24-month process for the entire project. Between now and then, obviously, there will be plenty of opportunities for the community, for yourselves, to get engaged, to participate, and to have a say in how you want to see the community change or not change, whatever the case may be, over the next 25 years. That sort of like wraps up my intro. It was very quick, so I wanted to leave some time for Matt and for SHS to get started on the community engagement program that we have prepared tonight. So thank you again for calling in, and we're very excited to embark on this on this journey.
Thanks, Alejandro. And as Alejandro said, we did want to sort of outline some of the next, how we're going to keep in touch over the next 18 to 20 months or so. I guess just a note, we'll also be posting these slides online afterwards. So if anyone's furiously taking down notes or trying to remember everything, don't worry, we'll have this posted online after for future reference on the project website. So far, as you said, this is the first sort of official touch point, but we've done a lot of work so far getting to this point. We developed the brand for the Growing Together project with the various different logos, and you'll be able to identify that as the project goes through, and that'll be carried throughout the project. We also launched a brand new website, which was really exciting for the municipality because it allows everyone, the consultants, the public, and staff to interact on this website and share resources, share information, and get some really exciting feedback. To date, we've had tremendous uptake on the website. This number is already out of date since I updated the presentation yesterday afternoon. We're over 1,800 people have visited the website, and over 200 people have registered or participated in something on the website. Which are really great numbers, and it's really exciting to see. Some more technical things that we've done, we've developed a notice of study commencement, which is sort of a formal requirement for us to do. We've also formed a municipal steering committee. So that's comprised of municipal staff and county representatives who will help sort of guide the project from a technical perspective. We've also been working really closely with the municipality's communications team to launch social media and various press releases. You might have heard some advertisements on the radio or received the flyer in the in a recent tax mail out. So we'll be advancing more communications as the project goes on. And one of our questions later on is to make sure we're getting that right and get your feedback on how we can make sure you stay in touch through the process. Obviously, due to the pandemic and sort of the evolving guidelines, right now, we're obviously working within those constraints and engaging virtually, but we also recognize that there's some challenges with sort of exclusively digital engagement. So we really want to provide opportunities for the diverse needs of the community. So that might be a hard copy survey, or sending presentations ahead of time, or providing a phone number or a dial-in option for meetings like this for folks to join without high-speed internet. And we really want to make sure that we provide as many and as frequent opportunities for the whole community to get involved. So I briefly mentioned some of the things that we've done, but I also want to sort of briefly touch on who will be engaging in this process, because I think it's really important for people to understand. So on the far left there, we're obviously engaging community members, and that's this group here today. We also formed we're also in the process of forming a stakeholder advisory committee, and almost 40 residents, which is a great number, have applied to join the stakeholder advisory committee, and we'll be going through that process actually later this week and scheduling the first meeting there. We'll also be engaging municipal council, so it's great to have them here today, but we'll also be going to council for their meetings and getting approval at certain times and engaging them in terms of what priorities are. There's also a number of stakeholders in the community, like business improvement areas, that we want to engage. So they'll be also members on our stakeholder advisory committee. Developers and landowners also play a very important role in this process, and we'll be engaging them through these sessions, some other dedicated meetings, and statutory approvals and notices. We're also conducting outreach to Indigenous communities to confirm their preferred level of involvement in the process. It's really quite important that this is done, and we are actively working on confirming that. As Jen sort of alluded to, we'll be engaging the county through this process, and we have a number of county representatives here this evening, and then they'll be reviewing what we're putting forward, providing advice, and participating on that municipal steering committee that we referenced. And last but certainly not least, we'll be forming what's called a technical advisory committee, and that'll include agencies like school boards, conservation authorities, and the public health unit. They're not necessarily decision makers on approving the official plan, but their input is invaluable and at times critical to getting it right and making sure that we're planning for the future. So lots of different people and lots of different groups that are being planned or planned to be engaged through this process. So sort of building on that timeline that Alejandro walked through, we have a bit of a breakdown of some, when you'll hear from us again. So highlighted here in this gray box is where we are right now. So we're just setting the vision at this visioning workshop. And so we have a number of things going on that started in February and we'll wrap up around the end of March. In April, we'll be going to council with pardon me, clearing my throat. Some land use options for 3 undesignated areas in Strathroy, and we'll have more information about that posted on the website in the coming weeks. The next time that we'll get together in a setting similar to this is in the early spring, when we're calling Let's Reconnect. At that point, we'll have some draft master plans to present and some really exciting new things to show up and get some input on. Throughout the process, there'll be different tools. So we might have a meeting. There might be an online platform like surveys or interactive maps, and also some documents to review if you choose. We'll then come together again in the early mid-fall to sort of confirm if we got it right and share those final master plans before they go to council for approval. So lots of different opportunities, and that's just in 2021 alone. In 2022, and I'm not going to get into it today, but we have a whole other series of touch points. So certainly lots to come there. Okay, so now that all the background information is out of the way, we're into the activities. And so tonight we're going to have sort of 3 rounds of activities. The first activity that you see on your screen is we're going to sort of talk about the vision for Strathroy-Caradoc at a high level. And then I'm going to pass the floor to the SHS team, and we're going to walk through a vision for housing. And then there'll be some questions, and we'll be going back to that Menti platform. So if take the opportunity to queue back up into that, and I'll change the questions soon. And then we'll regroup and just sort of ask some follow-up questions, get some feedback from you on this session so that we can, take that into consideration going forward and then outline some next steps. So if that sounds like a plan, we'll go to the next slide. So really important to introduce into the updated official plan is a vision statement. So a vision statement helps guide policy direction in the official plan and should really represent the fundamental values or principles of a community. So when you think of a vision statement, you might want to think about what are Strathroy-Caradoc's defining traits? What will Strathroy-Caradoc be known for in 30 years? And how would you explain Strathroy-Caradoc to someone who's never been to the community? So those are just some questions you might want to pop into your brain. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go over to the next question here. And I hope it comes up. So you should see the second question now on the Menti page. Again, it's www.menti.com, and the code is here up at the top. And the first question is, when thinking about Strathroy-Caradoc in 2046, what are the first 3 words that come to mind when describing your ideal community? And so you can just type some words into those different boxes, and they'll come right up on the screen in a word cloud. Oh, and I should reshare my screen. Pardon me. Is that second question up? Yes, it is. Perfect. All right, lots of great input so far. Some common words coming up here. Lots of great words. And if you've joined late, I'll flash up the QR code again. But if you're able to, you can also try going to www.menti.com, and the code is up here at the top. Okay, so we're seeing lots of great words come in. Progressive, community, welcoming, growth, growing. All big words. Any of the bigger words are ones that have been repeated more than once. We'll give everyone a couple minutes to continue on this question. And we'll take this input, and what we're going to do is we'll actually write a vision statement, and then we'll release some options out to the community to see if we got it right and to share what we heard and report back on that. So lots of great words here. Green-minded, friendly, inclusive and diverse, rural, safe, family friendly. Lots of great words. So we'll give everyone maybe a minute, and we'll go to the next question. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to move on, but lots of great, oh, we still got some input coming in, so I'll give everyone a second here. All right. That's really great input. Okay. All right, so I'll stop sharing now. Looks like we've held out here. So thanks everyone for participating in that question. And then what I'll do right now is I'm just going to put up the QR code for the activity in case anyone missed that, and you can scan that right now. And then I'll pass the floor over to the SHS team. Okay, so my screen's up now, and if you were missing any of the details, you can jot those down now. And I'll bring this up again at the end or for the ahead of the next round of questions as well. Okay, lots of great questions there. Sorry, it's always interesting doing virtual workshops because I have to flip between the screens, so I apologize for bouncing around here. So the next question we have for you is, what are some challenges to achieving your vision for Strathroy-Caradoc? So in the box, you can type in more than one word. You can type in a whole sentence. Just a reminder that it will come up on the screen. So we won't have your name beside it, but it will come up on the screen. So when you think of those keywords, what are some things that might be a challenge? Great, we got one item there, costs. Tax base. Okay, some great input. And these are important for us to help address some issues. Obviously, shortages of affordable housing. So glad you're able to join today. Affordable housing again. So certainly front of mind for a lot of people. Growing from a small rural to a small city. Growth that respects current residents' needs, communication. So some great responses here. What else? Change does take time. Preserving benefits of small town living. Certainly lots of great input here. Maintaining a high quality of development while creating affordable options for business and residential needs. Preserving agricultural base, certainly. Lots of great input here. Managing growth, resilient industrial mix, affordable housing once again, for sure. This is fantastic. Thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts. Attracting jobs. Maintaining the rich agricultural land base. Keeping competitive with other smaller communities around London. This is great. I'm waiting for a lull to move on to the next question, but there's no lull. So I'm going to we'll keep this one open for a little bit more. Put on some like jazz in the background. Easy listening. People getting involved, better the community as a whole, respecting conversations amongst different stakeholders. Okay, lots of different questions. This is great feedback. Okay, I think just in the interest of time, I am going to move on to the next question, and it's another open-ended question, so I think people will like this as well. So it should be up on your Menti screen now. Similar to the last question, but different. What are some opportunities that can help achieve your vision for Strathroy-Caradoc? So again, those words that you put on that first word cloud, what are some opportunities that can be harnessed? What are some assets, for example, in the community that people can leverage to help achieve that goal? What are some resources? Who are some people? Is there someone we're maybe not talking to? What's something that might distinguish the community from other communities in the area or in the region? We've got a couple answers up on the screen. So government funding, competitive taxes. Just gonna take a sip of water here. Oh, lots of great ideas. Great location close to cities in the 402, but rural based. Great amenities such as our splash pad, playgrounds, pools, good recreation opportunities. We'll also be doing that Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and that's the subject of our third workshop on March 18th, if you're interested. Proximity to markets, committed residents to the betterment of the community, so important. harnessing diversity and progressive thinking, lots of great ideas. Oh, I missed this whole other section here. Walkable, rideable by bike. We'll certainly be addressing that through the transportation master plan. So if you're interested in that topic, we'll be having another workshop next week. We have some different activities there for transportation. Involve the kids, that's a great idea. Unique trails and conservation areas. Older and newer housing, strong environmental planning. Development of lands and existing buildings, parklands. Far enough away from the highway where it's not a sound problem, but close enough to be convenient. That's a great point. As someone who grew up near a highway, I can connect with that. Keeping young people in the keeping young people in and contributing to the new Strathroy-Caradoc trail and walking path expansion. We'll be looking at that through the trails master plan, which we're really excited about. Centering some development on the river. I know that's something that the municipality is really keen on looking at, and some community space near the river. Local committed business leaders, developers, industrialists, affordable housing near amenities, strong trades programs. So we'll give everyone another minute here, and then we'll move on. Great historical culture. So lots of great opportunities here. Working with surrounding municipalities for joint commercial industrial plans, location, certainly. You bet we'll have a new official plan. Reducing suburban sprawl, maximize volunteer opportunities. So many great ideas here, everyone. Thanks so much. Okay. Give everyone 30 seconds. Here's your 30-second warning, and then I'm going to move on. It's great to see. Preserve our hospital ability to graduate from high school and make a life, agricultural businesses. All right, so I am going to move on. I know we'll have more opportunities for some other questions at the end, and hopefully that hopefully everyone's been able to get their ideas in, and we'll have another opportunity after this workshop for you to pop any ideas that you might have missed. So we're just gonna do that. Do that thing where I annoyingly flip screens again. And then I'm going to put Team SHS on the spot because you are up. And so just let me know when you want me to flip slides.
Thanks, Matt. Would you mind just going to the next slide, please? Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Johanna Hashin, and I'm from SHS Consulting. So the purpose of this Attainable Housing Study is to develop an action plan to address the gap between the demand for and the supply of attainable housing in Strathroy-Caradoc. So this study is based on 2 previous housing studies developed by the municipality, as well as data and information from Statistics Canada, CMHC, the municipality, the county, and the City of London. It's also largely based on these engagements, so the feedback that you give us, as well as the feedback from stakeholders that will be a big part of this Attainable Housing Study. This Attainable Housing Study background report will also include a review of provincial and municipal policies and strategies that affect the development of housing in Strathroy-Caradoc. It will also include a scan of best practices in addressing housing need. So just for clarification, for the purposes of this study, when we say attainable housing, we mean housing that is affordable to households with low and moderate incomes, but that does not have subsidies from governments. So it's market housing, but that is affordable to households with low and moderate incomes. So we've started to work on this housing study, and we've identified key housing gaps through the assessment of attainable housing needs. Next slide, please. So the first gap that we identified is that there is a need for more diverse housing options, including smaller dwellings for seniors, as well as affordable family-sized dwellings suitable for young families in Strathroy-Caradoc. As you'll see from the figure, the existing housing supply doesn't necessarily match the existing household composition. So most of the households in Strathroy-Caradoc are smaller, whereas most of the dwellings are single detached dwellings. So some of the opportunities that you talked about were attracting young families, attracting and keeping young people in the community. So all these things, attracting jobs, all these things will depend on having a more diverse housing supply so that all these different types of households will be able to find a home that's suitable for their needs. To give you further context on this, when we looked at the data, when we looked at the actual numbers, the families with children actually decreased. The number of families with children actually decreased from 2006 to 2016, which is a little bit concerning because there could be very many reasons why that number decreased. But one of the reasons might be that they're not finding the kind of housing that they need. So it might be that the housing is too expensive for them or it doesn't suit their needs. Next slide, please. Another thing that we found from the data is that older adults, so people 55 and older, make up half of all households in Strathroy-Caradoc. So again, single detached dwellings don't necessarily match the needs of an older population, especially if you have stairs or narrower hallways. So that again, that's pointing to a need for a more diverse housing supply. Next slide, please. So the second gap we found is that there is a need to increase the supply of purpose-built rental housing in Strathroy-Caradoc, which is affordable to households with both low and moderate incomes. So one of the challenges that somebody put in was that just house prices were not, or cost of living was outstripping wages, and that's totally correct. If you see the increase in the average house price from 2006 to 2020, 136.3% increase compared to less than 32% increase in the average household income within the same time period. So house prices are definitely increasing at a much greater rate, and average households in Strathroy-Caradoc, for them, housing is becoming, home ownership is becoming unaffordable. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of options in the rental market either. So as we'll see, the rental vacancy rate in 2020 was 1.5%. It's been going down since 2006, and it's been at its lowest level in 2020 at 1.5%. To give you a bit of context, what we call a healthy vacancy rate is 3%. That means there's a good balance between demand and supply. So at 1.5%, this means that the rental market in Strathroy-Caradoc is really tight, and landlords can demand the type of rents that they want, and people will have to pay if they want to find housing. Next slide, please. So those fast increase of house prices and the really tight rental market is contributing to a lot of households being in poor housing need. So a household is in core housing need if they are living in housing that is not affordable or is not in good condition or is not suitable for their needs, or all three of those conditions. So in 2016, 9% of all households in Strathroy-Caradoc were in core housing need. And you'll see that more than a quarter of all renters were in core housing needs. So the big percentage of renters is because there was also, when we looked at the data, there was also a big proportion of rental housing that was in need of either minor or major repairs. So the fact that there are so many renters in core housing needs suggests that a lot of renters are making do with not ideal housing situations because they don't have any other options. So next slide, please. So the third gap that came out of our analysis is that there is a need to develop more attainable ownership options for households with moderate incomes in Strathroy-Caradoc. So as you'll see, the average household in Strathroy-Caradoc can't actually afford the average house price in 2020. An average household would be able to, if they were only spending 30% of their household income on housing costs, which is the definition of affordable, and they had a 5% down payment, they would be able to afford roughly $340,000. The average house price in 2020 was $478,000. So you can see that the big difference. And the average house price of a single detached dwelling in 2020 was almost $500,000. And if you'll remember from the first slide, over 70% of the existing housing supply is actually single detached. So again, you'll see why there were so many households in core housing need. They're spending too much on their housing costs. To give you a little bit more context here, in 2019, only two new dwellings, which represented less than 2% of all new dwellings sold in 2019, were sold for less than $400,000, whereas 12% of all new dwellings sold in 2019 were sold for more than $650,000. So obviously not affordable to the average household in Strathroy-Caradoc. Next slide, please. So again, this data shows those house prices. They are the reason why we have this data. Even with households with moderate incomes, there are so many who are facing housing affordability issues. This means that they are spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. So as a total, almost 20% were spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. And again, you'll see renters, there's almost half of renter households who are facing housing affordability issues. And I would remind you that this isn't even households with low incomes. These are households with moderate incomes. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the fourth gap that we found is that the housing supply should be adaptable to shifting housing preferences initiated by COVID-19. So as we know, a lot of people are now working from home, which means the need for more flexible housing options. But it also means there might be a need for larger homes for families who are maybe sharing their home with extended family, but also smaller homes for people who either lost their jobs or are now only working part-time. They've lost some of their income and they can't afford their larger homes anymore. So just as house prices have continued to increase, we've also seen a large proportion of mortgage deferrals. So you'll see here more than 17% of CMHC insured mortgages. And the largest proportion of those mortgage deferrals were actually for households working in the service sector. So this really signals to us the need for more flexible housing options, the need for a more diverse housing supply. Like some of the opportunities that you've you identified through Matt's previous questions, like rental policy, attracting young families, like all of those things require a more diverse, a more flexible, and a more adaptable housing supply. Thank you very much. I will turn it back to Matt.
Thanks so much, Joanna, and lots of really great statistics there. And I guess just for everyone's knowledge, the team at SHS is in the process of preparing a background report for sort of the Attainable Housing Study. And that'll be online in the coming weeks on the project website. So if you were interested in following up on any of those stats, or there'll be certainly more details in that report than what we've presented what we've presented today. So that'll be available online at a later date, and you'll be able to review that report and read through and get some more details. Pardon me. Okay, but before we release that, we want to shape a bit of in addition to sort of the broader vision for growth and the future of Strathroy-Caradoc, we also want to shape a vision and some guiding principles for this Attainable Housing Study. And why this is important is, so once the team at SHS has completed this Attainable Housing Study, the team at WSP is actually going to take those recommendations, and we're going to turn them essentially into policies in the official plan in a very simple in very simple terms, and to help actually achieve some of those goals. Some of the other recommendations might be other projects that the municipality takes on, or other initiatives or incentives, or other programs that they choose to undertake. But in order to do that, in order to sort of steer this Attainable Housing Study, we do want to get some, as I said, a vision and some guiding principles to help us get there and ensure it sort of reflects where the community's at as it relates to attainable housing. So before we get to the activity, and we will get to the activity again, as I said, just to repeat, is a vision statement should help guide the direction of housing policy in the official plan. It should be clear, aspirational, future-oriented, and aligned with the preferred future we seek. And this is going to be a new housing vision. So there is no current housing vision. So we're going to be taking all this input and developing a new vision. So some examples that the team at SHS provided for us, and these by are no means what they'll land on, but we did want to provide some samples just to get the brain juices flowing. So Strathroy-Caradoc's communities will provide economic opportunities, well-being, and places to call home for residents and businesses. Strathroy-Caradoc is a complete, inclusive community with safe, adequate, and appropriate housing for all current and future residents. Strathroy-Caradoc has a range of housing options which meet the needs of all its residents, from young people just starting their careers to aging seniors who want to stay in the community. So lots of really great ideas. Each of those vision statements a little bit different than the other, but we want your input onto that. So let me just go back a couple of slides. I should have, just so we're all up to speed. So in case you missed it, here's the code. Again, to join the poll, here's the QR code if you want to take a picture of it. I'll leave this on the screen for a moment, and then then I'll flip screens. Okay, I am going to flip screens now. The code will be on the, pardon me, the code will be on the activity page once we get there. All right. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, so the first question should be up, and you should, or the first housing question should be up. So similar to the last time, what are 3 words that come to mind when you think of housing in Strathroy-Caradoc in 30 years for you, your children, and or grandchildren? So again, these are sort of 3 one-words that come to mind, and then we'll have a couple other sides where you can type a bit more.
Just a little bit of a prompt here. Maybe you could also think of it from the perspective of the different people in your lives. So maybe think about your aging parents or your children or a young person who's just starting out their career, or maybe you know somebody who has a physical disability. So maybe think about what you want housing in Strathroy-Caradoc to look like in 30 years for those people in your life.
That is very helpful context. Thanks, Joanna. Okay, we have a few words in. Lots of words, bunch of words in. Bob's iPad. It looks like Bob's iPad is somehow drawing on the screen. I'm not 100% sure how that's happening. I'm not sure if everyone else is seeing that. I'm seeing some nods, so I'm not alone. Hopefully it's working for you. Let us know and we can try and troubleshoot it for you. Okay, so lots of great words coming in. So affordable and sort of unaffordable. I guess affordable being the aspirational, the aspirational piece. Unaffordable being, you know, where they see it perhaps going. Some other words: diverse, density, variety, multi-generational, townhouses, inclusive, attainable, safe, attractive, yards. Okay, lots of great words here. So affordable and unaffordable still reigns as the largest word. And as I said before, the larger words means more people have typed them in. The smaller ones mean there might only be 1 or 2 people. Yards, green. Some condos and higher density words here. Okay, I'll give everyone a minute here to put in their words, and then I'll move on. The next activity is a bit different, so we'll try it out. Lots of great words coming in. Thanks, everyone. So affordable and diverse are certainly sticking out, as is density, attractive, inclusive, variety. Okay, so I am going to move on, and you know we'll have a couple questions where you can type in sort of more words and type in a bit more of a thought if need be. Okay, try and get to the next question here. Okay. Oh, hold on. I think I skipped a question. There we go. So you should see this next question here, and you'll have a bit of an option to rank. And so this question is focusing on, you know, guiding principles. And you know what these do is they help sort of form the rules or the framework that help generate ideas and really evaluate if the solution we're proposing is effectively addressing the problem. So we've proposed just some potential guiding principles or some words here on the screen. And so the question is when thinking about the future of housing, what are the most important principles that should be considered? Please rank them based on your on their importance. All right, we're seeing a number of answers pop in here. So innovative is, we've had 1 person vote. I think, yeah, 1 person vote so far. So innovative by default is number 1. Financially responsible and sustainable is pulling ahead as a clear winner. So financially responsible and sustainable is still sticking ahead. We'll have the next question. You can propose some other guiding principles. So if you have those tucked in your head, save those. We'll get that input soon. Innovative, flexible, adaptable are pulling through here. Some great input. Thanks, everyone. Oh, flexible, adaptable, and innovative are neck and neck. All right, some great input, everyone. Awesome. All right, so give everyone a minute here, but it does look like financially responsible and sustainable has held its place as the top guiding principle, followed by flexible and adaptable, innovative, inclusive, collaborative, and equitable. So certainly lots of great principles there to consider going forward. All right. Just having some we'll move on to the next question shortly, but I've lost my chat box here. My apologies. I did notice there was a question there. Sorry I missed it. That last question was assuming that change is sort of your ultimate vision. So if you had any, if you could make any changes you wanted, and that's where the vision was going. All right, so I think we might move on here, everyone. Financially responsible, sustainable has held its place in victory, and we'll certainly take all this feedback away. It's great and helpful. So our next question, just before we jump back over to the presentation, is so if there was anything we missed, if there was that burning word that you had in your mind, are there any other principles that the municipality should consider with respect to housing? Did that list not resonate with you? Do you think there was some keywords missing? Okay, some great words coming in: affordable, distribution, location, environmentally responsible, close to green space. Certainly lots of great things there. More density for affordability. Awareness of impact of other uses. Small footprints, environmental considerations. So looks like sort of the environmental piece and maybe the open space piece are certainly common threads here that I'm pulling out. Walkability, that's awesome, yeah. Green. This is great. Take a sip of water. Okay, it's slowing down, so I'll give everyone a minute here to put in your last ideas, and then we'll move on. We're not far away from the end. All right. So I am going to move on. This question should stay up. If I do this correctly, it should stay up for the remainder of the presentation. But we only have we have a couple more activities at the end, but that'll be the last time that we do the flip here. So. Okay, so we've worked through sort of the meat and potatoes of today's activity. We got through sort of that main vision and guiding principles, and then the team at SHS walked us through some of those key housing gaps, and then we talked about some of the housing vision and where we see housing going in the municipality. So this is obviously early days in the project, so we really want to outline some next steps and some opportunities to stay in touch. Okay, sorry, I thought I missed a slide there. So as I said earlier, feedback from this workshop will be used to prepare vision statements to inform the draft master plans and studies. So we'll take all this input and prepare some actual statements that you can review. Then we're going to report back on your input and continue online engagement through a vision survey to confirm what was heard. So in about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, a survey will be posted on the project website, and it's going to present some of the findings from these workshops, and it's also going to present those potential visions. And we'll ask for your thoughts and input and feedback on those before we actually integrate them into the plans, because we want to make sure we heard what you had to say, and that they do fully reflect what the community priorities are. As I mentioned, we're forming a stakeholder advisory committee and a technical advisory committee. So those are meetings sort of internally, and we'll be having those meetings later in March and sort of the first week of April. As Alejandro mentioned, on March 15th, a report and presentation will be going to Municipal Council to formally launch the official plan review and seek input. So anyone here today is welcome to register to delegate to Council if they have something they want to share. But we're not proposing the new official plan that day. That's sort of the kickoff, and it's for Council to sort of weigh in on some of their priorities and to give us some sort of next steps to consider. And then, as I said, some future public meetings will be held in spring 2021 to collect feedback on those various draft master plans and studies, including opportunities to review the housing report online. So certainly lots to come and lots to look forward to. So after this workshop, as I said, a visioning workshop will be available online. We'll also make some paper formats available at the municipal offices if anyone needs a copy of that. So we can certainly make that happen. And that'll wrap that first round of engagement to help us go forward. On the project website, we also have what's called the ideas tool, and lots of people have been typing in their ideas on the website. And you can just type in like one-liners or quick statements that, what are some, if you have a cool idea, or, not necessarily questions, but, something that we should be considering for housing. So all the different master plans, including the housing piece that we talked about today, have the ideas tool set up, and you can type in some thoughts there at any time, and we'll take that away. At any time going forward, check back often on the homepage of the project website. We update it certainly quite frequently. It's not a static page. It's a very much an active website, and we want to keep it as up to date as possible. Oh, we have someone joining us here. We also have a dedicated email address that you can send comments or questions to, and that's officialplan@strathroy-caradoc.ca. That's officialplan@strathroy-caradoc.ca. And so you can email it at any time, and we'll log those comments. And if it's a question, we'll get you the best response we can. If it's a comment, we'll certainly note it down, and we have a running list of all the comments that we've received so far. So thanks to everyone who's participated to date. Lastly, but certainly not least, if you go to the project website and you register, there's a big blue button there that should say register to get involved. That will get you on our contact list. So key milestones, we might send you a quick newsletter with a list of upcoming next opportunities to get involved. So for example, some people might have heard of today's workshop because we sent out a newsletter that had all the dates and some of the upcoming opportunities. So we're certainly not advertising other things, but we want to promote the project, and we welcome you to to register and provide your email address so that we can stay in touch and make sure that everyone gets all the information that they need. Okay, bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so as I mentioned, and just our last activity before we sort of formally wrap up the workshop, and then I'll open the floor to people who want to raise their hand or ask a question. So we just want some feedback on today's session because we still have 2 more of these, and if there's something we can improve on or adjust, we'd certainly be open to doing so. I know some people on this meeting have likely signed up for subsequent sessions, so hopefully that is beneficial. So I'm going to flip over to the next activity. Okay, so just a quick poll. Did you find that the information provided today or previously, if you did some reading online, was helpful in your understanding of the project? So yes, no, maybe there's a maybe you're like, I don't know, they didn't really explain that well enough. Great, seeing lots of yeses, that's good so far. Okay, a bit more information needed for sure. Certainly lots of information and lots to keep tabs on in this project, so totally get that. All right. And we have one more question, I promise, and it's the last one. All right, I am going to move on, I think. And I think the next question is really important for us as, we're all adapting to this sort of pandemic engagement reality. We might have gotten together in person, one evening and shared ideas in an in-person meeting, but we're obviously here on Zoom. But we want to provide those opportunities over the next year and a bit. So feel free to type in any other ways that we might have missed that you want to get involved. There's if there's something maybe we're missing, we'd like to know about it and make sure we're getting that considered. Oh, that's a great idea. Questions ahead of time so we can think about them. It's a great suggestion. We can look at getting an agenda together and sending that to everyone who registers. That's a good one. I'm not expecting a ton of ideas here, but if you have them, we'll take them. Okay, I'd very much like to be involved in the affordable housing portion of the project. So for sure, if you've joined us today for this workshop, we'll add you to our circulation list, and when there's updates, we'll send an email update to this to those who attended today. Oh, fingers crossed. If possible, when restrictions are alleviated, in-person meetings. I seriously have my fingers crossed. So stay tuned. Access to slides so we can print and make notes on slides. That's a great suggestion. We can look at sort of with the agenda, maybe consider a PDF that we can send out ahead of time, or we can make some slides available in print form at Town Hall. Perhaps examples of other committees that achieved success and how they did it worldwide. Some good ideas here. Great. Some great feedback here. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so I think just in, we're at 20 past 7 now, and we did schedule this till 8. So we'll be certainly around. Okay. Oh, other communities worldwide. Okay, that makes sense. So I think as part of SHS's report, at least for the housing, they'll be looking at some. I'm seeing some nods. So some best and sort of other innovative practices. Ooh, a great idea there about a roundtable where people can offer to, can visually draw on a map. That's a great suggestion, and actually we're going to be rolling that out for the transportation master plan very soon. It's actually active, so if you go to the transportation master plan website, you can leave a pin and you can mark up a map there. How about comments here on the stakeholder meetings? So those we'll be reviewing all the applications in the next week or so, and then forming the committee. They will be sort of it won't be an open invite to those meetings. We want to, it would be a lot of people if they were opened up as well. But we'll certainly report back on what we heard at those meetings and summarize the feedback for sure. Oh, that's a great idea. Statement from the mayor and council on their goals and objectives. So perhaps that's something for staff and council to consider. Maybe something that can come following the Section 26 meeting. Really appreciate this feedback, everyone. This is really important, and we want to make sure that the project works for everyone and works for the community. Okay, so that really does sort of wrap up the workshop. I'm just gonna, I'll keep this screen open, and you should be able to, pardon me, you should be able to, visit the questions right now. Yeah, so it's a couple. Let me just look at the chat because I haven't had a chance to follow it. All right. So just some comments here. Oh, thanks for the note there, Sandra.
Matt, it's
Yeah.
Alejandro here. I think there's a few couple of questions that we can probably tackle as part of the open sort of like roundtable from the chat application. So if you want to, I can help you keep track of whatever questions are coming in, so you don't have to talk and read at the same time.
Okay, well, I have the chat open here. Sandra, I see you have a question or a series of questions. If you want to unmute yourself, feel free to do so and ask your question, or I can just read out your question and we'll direct that to who best to answer.
I'm not sure if it's gonna.
Who best to answer.
Sorry. Hi, Matt. It's Sandra. Can you hear me?
Can hear you good now.
Okay. Hi. I was just wondering, like, with affordable housing, is it always set up as rental, or if there's a purchase option, how do you stop someone from buying it and then selling it at market value?
Does someone at the SHS team want to take a first cut at that?
Sure, I can take it on. Am I echoing?
Yeah, someone's echoing. I think we're better now. I think we're back.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Sandra, for your question. It's actually a really good question, and the answer is no, it doesn't always have to be rental. I don't know if you've ever heard of Habitat for Humanity. So that's an affordable housing option that's ownership. And yes, there are other models, and some of them actually build it into the contract so that whoever purchases the house, they can't sell it for market value if they will sell it. So it always remains affordable. Habitat, I'm not too sure. I think right now they don't have that, that contract yet, but there are definitely other models that do have it. And when we talk about affordable or specifically attainable housing, it can be affordable even without subsidies and government funding, right? That's part of what we're trying to do here. More diverse housing supply, including rental and attainable ownership, would meet a lot of the needs that we identified. So does that answer your question?
yes, it gives me a better understanding. I can do some more research too towards that.
Thanks, Sandra. I guess one other question, and I'll perhaps pass this to Jen to take a first cut at. Have locations for affordable housing been decided?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. No, at this point in time, we're nowhere near being in a place in our official plan to identify places for affordable housing. And on that note, I don't know, other than providing what we would identify in our official plan are areas that are designated perhaps for low or medium or high density development, not necessarily therefore affordable. One would think that higher density developments could be more affordable, but not necessarily.
Thanks, Jen. That's helpful context. Okay, some good comments here. Well, one person noting the price of housing is going through the roof this year, and it's already become unaffordable to the local community. Some ingredients there, is obviously lots of people moving to the community and transitioning to the work from home model. So that ties into that gap, the COVID-19 gap that Joanna presented. Okay. So I guess there's, a bit of a question for the group. So feel free to, answer it in the chat box. Was just wondering how participants feel about granny suites. If you're not familiar with those are sort of like a unit within an existing house. That's a second unit that an in-law or a loved one could live in. So maybe if you want to provide a response in the chat box. Okay. Yeah, a great comment here. There is a provincial plan in place for multifamily homes. So one of the things that we'll be looking at through the official plan review is gaps with provincial legislation policy. So for example, there has been recent changes to the Planning Act that do require municipalities to permit, additional residential units on a property. So that'll all be studied through the official plan review process for sure. Yeah, and so that touches on sort of the comment here about tiny homes. Maybe Jen might want to, if you have something to add here, is there any room in the current plan for such a possibility, such as tiny homes? And maybe any servicing considerations for those?
Thanks, Matt. Certainly, we're aware of the interest in tiny homes, and at this point in time, I think we're open to considering any and all housing options for the municipality, but realizing that we need to do our homework and make sure that it's right for both a servicing perspective and that it's appropriate for the areas in town that we're considering it for.
Great context. Thanks. Maybe I'll pass the next question to the SHS team to take a first cut at. How do you get developers to buy into the concept of attainable housing? I've seen Ed and Johanna both.
I will let Ed take this then.
Well, my comment on that would be we have to be able to demonstrate the large market that there is for attainable housing for a diverse range of price points, and it's to their advantage to be able to serve that market. If there's such a considerable gap in the municipality, they may not be able to sell those $600,000 homes so easily as the market settles after the pandemic. We've also seen municipalities that have encouraged diverse ranges of unit types and price levels when developers come in with applications for new housing development. And certainly if it's within the official plan as a policy of the municipality, and then the staff are encouraging developers to support those sorts of policies, we've seen much that can be achieved just through that sort of one-on-one negotiation with developers and investors.
Thanks, Ed. And maybe just while you're kind of unmuted, there's a question here. Question and comment, co-op housing was big in the 1980s. Any chance it may be looked at again by the feds or the CMHC? Or any thoughts on co-op housing?
Well, co-op housing is still, yes, co-op housing is still quite achievable. Some of the newer generally it was government funded in order to keep the it was generally a form of rental housing, if you will. It's not exactly rental housing, but basically that's what the result is. And it was funded through government programs at the time to keep it affordable. Plus, residents of the co-op take on some of the day-to-day operations and maintenance in order to keep costs down. There's a recent, under the National Housing Strategy, there is a recent program called the Co-Investment Fund that is available to co-ops in order to invest in new forms of affordable co-op housing. And if there's interest in the community of among individuals who would like to form a co-op, that can certainly be done, and work with their local CMHC office to access those funds. I think some of the decline in popularity of co-ops was that after a time, people found that many of the residents were not always keeping their side of the bargain by carrying on the functions that they're being asked to do as a member of the co-op, and increasingly, in order to ensure the proper maintenance, the co-ops had to go outside and start paying for these services. So in many cases, it didn't really achieve the full result that was hoped for. But I mean, there are good examples, especially in Western Canada. It's been very well done and popular. So I'd certainly encourage people, if they did have an interest, to pursue it with this CMHC funding.
Super helpful. Thanks, Ed. Looks like there's a couple other questions. So if in the chat box for the group. So if anyone wants to respond in the chat box, there's a question here: would the Community Support Council using tax dollars to buy land for community housing projects? Okay, let me just see. Maybe Jen can take this. So didn't Strathroy-Caradoc double the development fee last year with such a large increase? How is this in line with asking developers to build more accessible housing when the development fee charged by the municipality increased so substantially?
Thanks, Matt. So that's a big question. What I can tell you is that the development charge fee that was increased is in a lot of ways reflecting the population growth that has happened in our community. And so as we have new population coming to the municipality, we are obligated to provide services to those new residents to maintain our service levels. And we hadn't for a few years really looked into all of the implications of an increasing population on our servicing and infrastructure requirements. And so this increase really reflects the fact that for the first time, the municipality really dug deep into projecting what our population is going to look like in the future, but also reflecting how much growth has happened in the recent past, and ensuring that we would collect money from development to pay for that development moving forward. And we are very aware of that is an increase in fee, but in the long run, it does protect the taxpayer and future residents in that we don't go back to those people necessarily to cover those increased costs. We are able to get that fee from development as it occurs. I hope that helps.
I think that sounded good to me, and hopefully that helped answer your question, Tim. I guess perhaps a question for the municipality, but SHS might want to weigh in. So has there been any thought given to applying a development fee on new housing and using it to subsidize the construction of affordable housing?
I can take it again, Matt. There are a number of ways that we are considering potentially incentivizing affordable housing. One of the things that we have done recently is include in our updated community improvement program a number of programs that specifically will provide money to developers on a per unit basis for the introduction of new rental units in specific areas of our community. So we have put budget money aside. We have parameters for what would make a development meet the criteria to access that funding, and we will be launching that program in the very near future. So that's one of the ways that the municipality has chosen to incentivize it. There are others, and certainly we're hoping that one of the outcomes that we'll get from this project is some further guidance on how we as a municipality can incentivize. Maybe it's not always by money, maybe it's by land, maybe it's by partnerships with other community leaders or developers. But we're certainly hoping this plan will assist us in coming up with ideas on how best to incentivize that type of development.
Maybe I could weigh in quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Jennifer's really, yeah, Jen's hit the nail on the head. We're seeing a lot of municipalities that are adopting community-wide affordable housing community improvement plans and offering a whole range of incentives in return for the provision of affordable housing in these areas. And these can include anything from waivers of development charges to capital grants to accelerated approval process and even to what they call incremental tax schedules, where the affordable units are not subject to property tax or only to a very gradual increase in property tax over time in order to enhance their affordability. So if the municipality is starting into that process, you're actually one of the leaders in Ontario. There's only a handful that have got this in place, but it is becoming a popular tool. We also have seen some municipalities, as part of their development charges, I believe one of the eligible categories in development charge is to enable the municipality to set up reserves for the purpose of trying to incentivize or support affordable housing, and then applying those reserves strategically in order to achieve that. I believe some large municipalities, City of Toronto, for example, has developed a program they call the Mayor's Open Door Program, and I think they do have a development charge or a levy that goes towards establishing that sort of reserve fund, and then they use it in a variety of methods in order to encourage affordable housing. So there is quite a bit that the local municipality can do. I love the idea also of partnering and assisting developers and nonprofit agencies to seek out sources of funds through some of the new government programs. There can be quite an active approach to be able to do that. So I think you're on the right track, and hopefully through this process, we'll be able to use some further ideas.
And further to that, Matt, just also as a clarification with the DC development charge fee increase, and to follow on EdStars as an incentive for affordable housing, there is actually a mechanism whereby the DC fee is less if you are a apartment use or a townhouse use compared to if you are just a single detached dwelling. And there is an opportunity to actually defer development charges for a period of time if you qualify as a rental housing unit. And so those are some of the ways that those DC increases are less impactful on affordable housing types of dwelling units.
Super helpful. Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Ed. Okay, I'm not seeing other questions? Should I comment? Sandra noting that she believes the City of London in the downtown utilizes a property incentive program for high density development. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands raised, and if I'm missing something, let me know. But thank you again so much for taking the time out of your schedule this evening for joining us. As I said, this is just the beginning, and we encourage you to visit the growingtogethersc.ca project website at any time to stay in touch, to share your ideas, to get resources, and sort of seek some answers to some of those frequently asked questions. This does bring us to the formal end of the workshop. Myself, Alejandro, and municipal staff will hang on for some time in case anyone didn't want to ask a question in front of the big group. We can certainly have a conversation. We'll be here till 8, so we'll be on. And but that does wrap up the formal part of the workshop. So thanks so much for taking your time this evening, and we look forward to being in touch soon. Oh, let me see if I can get that QR. I have a question here to see if I can get the QR code up. So I'll try and get that up as people, if people want to visit the questions again. But that'll close once I close the meeting here. So. So many slides. I'm gonna go back to the QR code. All right, so there's the QR code if anyone did want to leave a comment there. So thanks so much for joining. And again, we appreciate your time this evening and look forward to being in touch. As I said, a visioning survey will be available online in the next couple of weeks to sort of follow up on today's session on growing together. And all the contact information that you might need is there. So thanks again and have a great rest of your evening. Bye, everyone. For those still on the call, feel free to unmute yourself if you did have a question or a comment. We can certainly tackle those.
Hi, it's Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
At locations, and I'm not picking, this is just an idea that popped in my head. Ideas like the mall or Kennewick Mall, downtown, our big downtown mall. Relevant redevelopment ideas for housing or different options. I know there are still tenants in that building, or ideas to better utilize that space. Has things like that been considered, or is that?
Jen,
I don't know exactly.
Yeah, Sandra, that's a great suggestion and comment. Certainly, we would love to see that site redeveloped. I am sure we could all imagine something on that site that is a little more exciting than what is there and could certainly help us with some of our attainable housing goals. It is a challenge when it is privately owned, and it, some landowners aren't as interested or motivated to do projects on their own private property. And so we can certainly attempt, but we can't force. And to be honest, what the underlying permissions on that property now would support, residential above commercial, to a certain extent, but there just doesn't appear to be interest on the owner of the property at this point in time to take up that opportunity.
The other site that I had thought of, I drive past it every day in my daily travels, is, are there any programs like, obviously the grain mill in the core of a community was once a vibrant thing, but now the mills have moved to central location, so that mill is obsolete there on the corner of, I can't think of the name of the two streets at the moment, but are there programs to help take those mills, those cement silos down and make it available to put something else on it, or would that all be on the developer?
Yeah, so again, it is private property, and again, their motivation to do something, themselves or to sell it to somebody who wants to do something is, unknown. I can say that we did recently go through an exercise to develop a downtown master plan, that it did include that area. And so this was, again, a big picture master plan exercise that identified, what parts of the downtown could include. And I know that area was considered as part of that. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that area was potentially identified as kind of a future hub for where our market could be. And just being respectful of the agricultural history that is attached to that specific site, and whether or not all of the silos were to be removed, or just, what that would look like exactly is, subject to future consideration. But certainly, I guess we can provide the incentives for private landowners to do what they will, and there might be incentives for, say, brownfield redevelopment for the purposes of housing, but if the owners aren't motivated to do it, it makes it difficult to get it done.
Yes, I know. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sandra,
Sandra.
and thanks, Jen. A couple comments actually in the chat box. So Jerry just asked if, I assume you're referring to the stakeholder advisory committee there? Yeah, so the applications just closed at the end of last week. So we've just downloaded all of the, we've had about 40 people apply. So we've actually just downloaded those results, and we'll be sharing those with the municipality in the next couple of days, and having a discussion about striking that committee. But we have certainly lots of interest for sure. So we'll be in touch on that soon. And a question from James: does Strathroy have the land needed for attainable housing? Maybe Jen, maybe Ed. Start with Jen.
I guess so. Do we have land available to use for attainable housing that's under our ownership? Possibly. I mean, the municipality does own a variety of lands, and it's I guess something that we're hoping to get out of this project is some guidance on what criteria would we evaluate our own lands for potential use as housing or otherwise. Certainly there has been some discussion in Mount Bridges about the use of municipal lands for the purpose of housing, and we're kind of working through that process right now.
Thanks, Jen.
Ed, maybe do you have anything else to that effect? How municipalities can potentially use their own land?
Yeah, I would certainly again say that's there's a lot of precedent around Ontario and elsewhere for municipalities using these sorts of lands for affordable housing, attainable housing. We've seen anywhere from straight donations of the land to some kind of cost sharing, depending on the nature of the development. But we've seen it in larger municipalities and in small municipalities. We worked quite a bit in Bruce County, where they had a variety of surplus municipal lands, and they developed 4 transitional housing projects for victims of domestic violence, with contributions from the municipality to at nominal rate to be able to put that housing to the use of transitional housing for victims of violence, combined with some of the subsidy programs of the day. And there's certainly a lot of opportunity for creativity by the municipality. We've seen RFPs where the lands are declared surplus for the purpose of affordable housing, and then municipality can issue RFPs looking at with a series of criteria about what the target goal is for those lands, and then invite either both nonprofit and private sector or partnership organizations to submit ideas on how they can best be used to meet the gaps that are identified in these sorts of studies. So there's a lot of opportunity. Usually what we suggest coming out of this kind of study is that municipality prepare a formal inventory looking at what is available across the municipality, and we would suggest criteria for determining which of those might best be suited for sustainable housing, affordable housing. So I do think we'll probably head in that direction in terms of this project.
Thanks,
Matt,
Ed. Super helpful. You, Jerry?
do you know a gentleman named Garth Brown? Have you heard of him?
Who is that question towards?
To you, Matt,
Oh, no, I do not. Sorry.
or to Jen?
I don't,
Apparently,
yeah.
to do with affordable housing, and there's funds available. I don't know an awful lot about this yet. I'm just hearing about it for the first time today. It's, apparently he is raising or has a way or knows about funds that are available to be used for affordable housing within communities. And I'm certainly going to be doing an investigation into that to find out what is this all about. But I just heard about it today. These funds would not even be coming from the municipality. I don't know where they're coming from. It's not going to be manna from heaven, that's for sure.
Well, I'll pass that to someone because I do know that funds from many sources exist. So maybe Ed?
Oh, I might venture to take a guess that he may be familiar with some of the new programs that have recently been established by Canada Mortgage and Housing through this new national housing strategy. And there's 3 or 4 different sorts of capital programs that would assist an individual in putting a project together. He may be onto that. And then the provincial government has some very modest sized programs. I think one is called OFI, which is Ontario Provincial Housing Initiative, something like that. It's a small amount of money that goes through the service manager. Your service manager is the City of London, who may be able to offer modest amounts of funds under that program to help encourage affordable housing development. So there are some sources that are out there. And if he's familiar with some of these programs, he could certainly try and bring those to the community.
Jerry, did that perhaps answer your question? Certainly lots of information to digest today.
Yeah. I don't know whether what Ed was referring to is what I heard about today, but I'll certainly look into it and I'll get back to you folks on that.
Helpful, thank
In
you.
regards to the affordable housing unit that they're talking about constructing in Mount Bridges through the CMHC, is there any such thing as that being considered for Strathroy itself?
Jen, perhaps?
I think it would be safe to say that at some point we are absolutely going to try to do that in Strathroy. It was just Mount Bridges is identified as a pressing need, and the fact that it just doesn't have any inventory at all. And so we want it both in Mount Bridges and Strathroy, but we just started with Mount Bridges first in this case. I think it absolutely will be a priority to get in Strathroy too.
I do know that the Parkview Manor across from where I used to live 5 years ago, I think they have 16 or 18 units in that facility. But apparently they have a waiting list of 45 to 50 people. So the affordable housing issue is a big issue in Mount Bridges, obviously.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jerry.
absolutely.
I've seen James come off mute a couple times. So James, did you perhaps have a question for us?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. I'm getting a bit confused about the timing of everything.
Sure.
I mean, you know, a lot of these questions that have come up and a lot of the discussion and certainly your slides point to a problem that exists right now, right? I mean, you know, we all know that that attainable housing needs to be addressed, you know, in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out how all this fits into a 25-year plan, being that, you know, 5-10 years ago, we didn't see this coming, like the situation that we're in now. So, yeah, I mean, we can put forth a lot of suggestions and all that for immediate action, but like I say, I'm still having difficulty trying to figure out how this all works into some, you know, 25-year strategic plan for the town.
Lots to unpack in that question, but a very good question. Ed, do you maybe want to start and see if Jen wants to add anything at the end?
So my comment on this question, which is an excellent question, in view of the fact that this is really part of an official plan review. So an official plan is a framework to speak to the goals of the municipality and the needs of the municipality. So when you're looking long term, I mean, we all try and have crystal balls, but things can change rapidly, as you see with the pandemic. But the starting point is to understand the needs and objectives of the municipality, and then put into place a framework for decision making that would guide both investors and the government itself in undertaking development that's in accordance with the goals and identified policies arising as part of this framework. That's why we talked about having a vision, and we talked about principles and looking forward to what kind of community we're trying to achieve. So from a housing standpoint, it's important to put those kind of long-term frameworks in place in the official plan, and then to, in the shorter term, to look more directly at how we can move into more of an action position to be able to undertake initiatives that will start to support the framework. And governments change programs all the time, and the municipality needs to be a bit nimble and flexible to be constantly monitoring these programs, reaching out to developers and nonprofit agencies to help them access the funds, and then get into the sorts of developments that would support the municipality's goals and needs. So I would say this is a very important exercise, but we don't know what's going to take place, 10, 15 years down the road. So it's always important that's why they encourage the updating of official plans, I think at least every 5 to 10 years, to be able to revisit the needs of the municipality, what's happening demographically, are you aging, which we are, and how might that change things down the road. So there's a short-term and a long-term view you have to take when doing these official plan reviews, and part of our job is to be able to equip the municipality to put a proper framework in place that'll achieve these goals, and then to give it a number of ideas on shorter-term tools to start filling in the gaps.
Thanks, Ed. And you touched on a really great point that I think I was going to highlight at the end, was just, there's a future reviews, right? It's not every 25 years that the plan's looked at. So, you obviously want to address the problems of today, but, have that toolbox in place to, as there's subsequent reviews. So hopefully that addressed your question, James.
Yeah, I think so. With the understanding, my take on all this is that what you need to do is you need to put in programs and policies that address the immediate problem. But a lot of a 30-year, 25-year plan just is going to consist of a lot of motherhood statements, right? Because everybody knows what good things are, and what we need to do and all that. But from a practical perspective, you need to follow a plan, I think, that has more of an impact, and that can only be done immediately. And that's not just for housing. I mean, that's everything. That's the parkland, all of the different facets of this, right? Transportation. So anyways, I understand the 25-year, that's just some, I assume that it's the province that says you need to have a 25-year plan. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So there's no way around that, right? I mean, I worked at a university for a number of years, right? So I understand, the many ways a government can start interfering with, proper planning. So, but I guess my other question then is, how, we've got all these little groups, we've got the public, we've got the town staff, we've got the consultants and all that. Where does council come into play here? And I'll tell you the reason I ask is because next year, you were saying that you would expect the this plan to be finalized by the end of 2022. And it's my understanding that there's an election next October, which would be right in the middle of finalizing all this plan. So how does all that work?
I might pass this to Jen, but before I do, I'll just add that those various master plans that on that picture that Alejandro showed, there was sort of the transportation master plan, the recreational trails master plan, the parks plan, this housing study. Those various components will be done this year and then will be approved by council in 2021, essentially. But you are correct that we are looking at 2022. So maybe Jen can weigh in on sort of what the municipality's thought is on that.
Sure.
If any.
Yeah, no, what I can say, and we do have Councillor Pelkman actually here as well still. So council has been very forward thinking, I think, on these long-term planning visions of late. In fact, they have really given the marching orders to ensure that we as a municipality update our policies, our master plans, to enable us to be flexible to deal with situations that that come forward. And I can say that as one example, very early on into this first term of council, they did pass a strategic plan, and one of the 6 pillars of that strategic plan was the growth management and encouraging attainable housing in the community. So I think it's with that lens that council has really set the stage for, we want to be a municipality that is able to be flexible and proactive in dealing with growth and development challenges. Housing attainability is one of the biggest ones I think we're feeling right now. And so I know that the council is very supportive of this project and the hopeful the outcomes of that. Steve, you came live. Can you fill in the group on the rest of that to that end?
I've been listening all the way through.
Oh boy.
I didn't think it was really my forum to put forth a lot of ideas and stuff here, but at the end of the day, it's an issue of supply and demand. If the demand outstrips the supply, the price goes up, right? So we have to put in place policies that allow private development to add supply to start to meet the demand, and that's when you'll see price come down. So those kinds of things can be put in place as councillors change, and we're all aware that we have a job review every 4 years, and but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be thinking beyond the term of council. We need to think beyond the next term of council and the term of council after that, because and then hope that new councillors that come in have good rationale to anything that they may change or put in place. I mean, we can, Mount Bridge is a prime example of we can do some things, but they're drops in the bucket to what's really needed. We just don't have the money or the volume of land to affect great change in the housing market.
Thanks, Councillor Pelkman. Okay, so it looks like that's come to the end of the questions, and just recognizing the time, I think we'll formally conclude this evening's session. This was a great discussion. Really appreciate it, and I've downloaded, while we were here, I downloaded all the results from the poll, so we've got lots of great information to work with. So thanks to those remaining on the call. Thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Good job, Matt. Thank you.
Okay, good night, guys.